I said the worst sentence of my life in a parking lot that smelled like rain and old coffee. This is your fault, I told the man who had held my hair back while I cried on the bathroom floor. He didn't argue. He's the kind of person who lets silence keep you from digging deeper. He just opened the passenger door, helped me sit, and buckled my seatbelt like I was fragile glass. We drove home without the radio on. I rested my forehead against the window and watched the world blur into streaks, like the city was moving on and I wasn't invited. I blamed him for a miscarriage. I said it out loud. I said it more than once. The worst part is that a few days earlier, a doctor had looked me in the eye and said words I could have borrowed as a shield. Most early losses are due to chromosomal abnormalities. There is nothing you did to cause this. She sent me home with a brochure that said grief doesn't need a villain. I decided grief did, and I picked the person closest to me. His name is Zach. We had been together for 4 years, the last 2 living in a rental with creaky floors and a dog whose energy made everything feel like a sitcom. Zach is an electrician who measures twice and cuts once, the kind of man who keeps extra fuses in a plastic bin labeled in all caps. He drinks water like it's his side job and never lets a check engine light win. He wanted the baby. I did too. Wanting didn't matter to biology. It's a sentence I can say now without choking on it. I found out I was pregnant on a Wednesday morning in February, the kind of winter morning that makes you feel like hot showers are proof God still loves the world. I peed on a stick while the coffee brewed. 2 pink lines. I laughed and cried and laughed again, then shoved the test in my robe pocket like it might evaporate if I put it down. Zach found me standing in the doorway like a person who forgot how doors work. He looked at my face and his expression did a whole novel in 2 seconds. Confusion, hope, fear, joy. Is that? He started. I nodded. He picked me up in a way that would be embarrassing if it weren't so honest. We ate toast and eggs because my grandmother always said you should give good news something simple to sit on. We decided to wait to tell people until the 8-week appointment. It wasn't a superstition, it was just a plan that felt like a grown-up thing to have. I Googled things you aren't supposed to Google, and then banned myself from my phone after midnight. I switched to decaf like a zealot. I bought crackers and cucumbers because every website told me nausea loves bland kindness. I took prenatal vitamins the size of small boats. I downloaded an app that compared the embryo to fruit. By 6 weeks it was a sweet pea, which is a cute way of saying nothing is promised. The night before the appointment, Zach worked late on an emergency call. A breaker panel had fried at a bakery, and the owner was crying because she had a wedding order. Zach sent me a photo of his hands covered in black smudges with the caption, "Superhero Origin Story." I pictured him under fluorescent lights, doing math with wire and courage. I fell asleep on the couch waiting for him, and woke up to his head on my lap, the dog snoring like an old engine at our feet. It felt like a little family even before it was. The next morning, we sat in a waiting room with a potted plant that had given up. The ultrasound room was cold and kind. The tech was gentle. There was a screen. There was silence where we hoped a whoosh would be. The doctor came in and spoke in that voice doctors use when they're walking you down a corridor you don't want to be in. Sometimes development stops early, she said. It's nothing you did. She said it twice. It's nothing you did. She told me options. Wait and see, medication, procedure. She told me statistics so I wouldn't feel alone even though statistics don't climb into bed with you. She said if I bled heavily or had a fever I should call immediately. She said to rest. She looked at Zach and gave him a job people give to the person standing closest to sorrow. Make sure she drinks water. He nodded like a soldier given orders he could follow. I had the procedure 2 days later because my brain needed a date to put on the calendar like a box I could check. Zach drove me home, set me up on the couch with ginger ale and the soft blanket his mother gave us last Christmas, and put the dog on his place, Matt with a chew so he wouldn't try to fix grief by licking it. He called my boss and told her I needed a couple of days. He didn't say why, he just said medical. She said, of course. He made rice and the kind of chicken that falls apart the way good things do when they're ready. He offered to call my mother. I said no. I didn't want to translate this yet. I slept like a person hiding. I woke up angry. Anger is easier to carry than the version of sadness that feels like fog in your bones. I picked up the first object my mind could use as a weapon. If you had come home earlier, I said. If you hadn't picked up that extra Saturday shift. If you hadn't made me walk the dog that night when I was tired. If you had told your mother sooner, So I wouldn't have had to lie to her face on Sunday when she asked why I wasn't drinking wine. I threw sentences like rocks. Zach stood there and took them. He said, "I'm sorry," the way a person says "I'm here," because he knew the facts weren't the problem. I repeated the doctor's sentence like a dare, and then ignored it. "Nothing I did." I snapped at the mirror. "Then why do I feel like a murderer?" I know that's dramatic and wrong. I know it now when my head is calmer. Back then, the words tasted like punishment I thought I deserved. I looked at Zach's face and turned him into a target because he was safer than the ceiling. I told him this was his fault because he had convinced me we could handle a baby, while still paying off our student loans and saving for a wedding we were planning with a Pinterest board like teenagers. I told him I never wanted the dog in the first place, lie, and that picking up his socks had been slowly killing me, exaggeration. I told him I needed space. "Take all the space," he said quietly, and then he did the dishes because his hands need jobs in storms. 2 days after the procedure, my sister Greta showed up with a bag of groceries and a face that meant business. Greta believes in lists. She unpacked Greek yogurt and freezer meals, and a candle that smelled like clean laundry. She hugged me and then pushed my hair behind my ears like I was 5. "Let me be bossy," she said. I let her. When Zach came home, she looked at him the way sisters look at men who are trying their best in a room where best is not enough. "Hi," she said neutral. He nodded like someone approaching a dog that might bite. "I'm going to stay with Greta for a while," I announced, like a queen ruling on a matter of state. Zach opened his mouth and then shut it. "Okay," he said. "I'll pack you a bag." He put my softest shirts in it and forgot socks because he lives in a world where socks reproduce. At Greta's, I performed grief like a job. I wore big sweatshirts and ate toast and watched a British baking show where people cried over collapsed sponge cakes, so I didn't have to cry over other things. I sat on Greta's balcony and told the sky that I wanted someone to blame. I joined a pregnancy loss forum, and then exited quickly when I realized pain shared is not the same as pain soothed. I muted Zach's texts after 3 days because every "are you okay?" felt like a shovel digging up something I had decided to bury. He wrote that he loved me. He wrote that he was here. He wrote that he had called the clinic to ask what I should watch out for, and that he would sleep with his phone on loud. I let the messages stack up like Wi-Fi bars I refused to connect to. Greta is kinder than me. She never said, "You're being unfair," even when I was. She just asked questions like, "What would make this feel 1% less awful?" And "Do you want me to come with you to the follow-up?" And "Do you want soup or pizza?" She is the person who once talked a flight attendant into moving me up to an exit row because I was crying quietly after a breakup. When I told her I wanted to transfer the title of Zach's Honda to my name, temporarily, she put down her tea slowly. "You can't do that," she said. "It's not your car." I said things people say when they want to win a game that isn't even being played. "I pay the insurance," I said. "Half true, we split it." "I'm on the policy," I said. True but irrelevant. "I'm the one who drives the dog to the groomer," I said, which even I knew sounded like satire. "He bought the car before you were together," she said. "It's only in his name." I looked up the registration in our shared file folder, like a person looking for a loophole that would also be a time machine. Zach's name. His signature. The loan in his account. The spare key in the junk drawer at Greta's is a thing that could start a fight or a car. I chose both. Here is where I should say I was grieving and not thinking clearly, because it's true. It is also true that grief doesn't deputize you to be reckless. I texted Zach, "I'm coming by to get some things." He replied, "I'll be at work until 6. Do you want me to leave the door unlocked?" I didn't answer. I let myself in with the key because practical kindness is not the same as permission for the thing I was about to do. The house smelled like dog and laundry detergent and Zach's cologne. A smell like cedar and clean shirt. The dog bounded up, and then stopped short when he realized I was crying. I packed quickly, clothes, toiletries, my childhood stuffed rabbit that looks like it knows too much. I saw the key bowl by the door. I took the Honda key because it felt like leverage. I told myself I was borrowing it. I told myself I had a doctor's appointment across town, and the bus made me nauseous. I told myself a lot of things. I got in the car, turned the engine, and felt something inside me loosen. The particular freedom of being behind the wheel when the rest of your life is in a ditch. I drove to nowhere. I drove through neighborhoods where people had porch swings and lives that seemed to be proceeding according to plan. I drove past the clinic and flipped it off like that could hurt a building. When I turned onto our street, Zach's truck was already in the driveway. He was on the porch with his hands in his pockets like he was thinking about what to do with them. He watched me park. He didn't look angry. He looked like a man who had rehearsed the scene where you come home even if you don't live there. I opened the car door. He said calmly, "I need you to leave the keys." There are moments where you could de-escalate by saying 3 words. Mine were, "You're right, sorry." I did not say them. "It's our car," I lied. "No," he said, even more calmly. "It's mine. You've always had permission to use it, but I'm revoking that permission." It is embarrassing to admit how quickly I became petty. "You're revoking my permission to drive to the grocery store?" I said. "I'm revoking your permission to take whatever you want when you're mad," he said. "You took my hoodie when you moved out." I didn't ask for it back. This is different. Our neighbor Mrs. Lee was watering her roses and pretending not to watch. She is 80 and has seen everything. She turned off the hose and went inside because she recognizes when a story is getting loud. "I'm keeping the car tonight," I said. "I have an appointment tomorrow." Zach looked at my face for a long second, like he was trying to find the version of me he knew. Then he said, "If you drive away, I'm calling the police and reporting it stolen." My mouth dropped open. "You would do that to me?" "I would do that for me," he said. "Because I need to put a wall between us before we hurt each other more." He took his phone out of his pocket. I laughed in horror. "You're serious?" "Yes," he said. "This is serious." I did the most childish thing I've done since I was a child. I got back in, shut the door, and put my hands on the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing left. He didn't shout. He dialed. He told the dispatcher his name, address, and that his vehicle, registered in his name, had been taken without permission by his ex-partner. He described me in the kindest possible way. "She's not dangerous. She's upset. We've had a recent loss." He said he didn't want me arrested, he wanted the car back. The dispatcher said an officer would be by. I sat there like a kid who thinks the principal can't see them if they crouch. 2 officers arrived 10 minutes later. They stood by the porch with the kind of posture you get when you've been in too many domestic scenes and learned to make yourself into a wall. One of them, a woman, came to my window and tapped gently. I rolled it down. "Ma'am," she said not unkindly, "whose name is on the title of the vehicle?" "His," I said. "Are you on the title?" "No. Does he give you permission to drive it?" I swallowed. "He used to," I said. "He says he's revoked that," she said. "So here's where we are. If you drive off, he can report it stolen. If you hand over the keys, we all go back inside and breathe. We're not here to referee your relationship. We're here about a car." I cried in a way that made my whole face feel like it belonged to a different person. "We lost a baby," I blurted. She nodded like a person who has been a body that bleeds. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "That's hard. It also isn't the car's fault." I handed her the keys. She gave them to Zach without even looking at him. She looked at me the whole time like she knew how humiliating and necessary this was. "We're going to go," she said. "He is within his rights to keep his property. If you need to pick up your belongings, you can arrange a time, or you can each have a third person present. That's often a good idea." She gave me a card with a domestic relations number on it. Not because there was violence, but because logistics get loud too. After they left, Zach didn't gloat. He didn't say, "I told you so." He said, "Do you want me to carry your bag to your sister's car?" And when I didn't answer, he did it anyway because he has a muscle memory of caretaking that my behavior hadn't erased. "You can keep the hoodie," he added quietly. It was a gift. I said the thing I meant and the thing I didn't at the same time. "I hate you." He nodded once, like a person absorbing a misfired bullet. "I know you're hurting," he said. "But I won't let you make me the punching bag for it." He walked back up the porch steps. He didn't watch me leave. He was done being my audience. At Greta's, I told the story in a way that made me the protagonist. "He called the cops," I said, as if that were the headline. Greta listened with her eyebrows up. Then she said very calmly, "You tried to take his car." "It's just a car," I said. "It's his car," she said. "And it's not about the car." I hate how my sister is always right. I hate that she says sentences like a dentist, firm and in service of something healthy. "You're not ready to talk to him," she added. "And he's not wrong for asking you not to talk tonight." She poured me water because other people's bodies are always our second job. The next day, I went to my follow-up. Greta came and squeezed my hand so hard it hurt in a way that felt like something tethering me to the planet. The doctor repeated the things I had been refusing to hear. It wasn't your fault, she said. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't the dog or the shift he worked, or the grocery trip you took, or the coffee you drank the day before you knew. You could lie on a couch for 8 weeks and still not get a different outcome. She told me to watch for infection, to take care of myself, to talk to someone if the sadness started to sound like instructions. On the way home, Greta drove. I stared at the windshield wipers and thought about how a small machine doing the same motion over and over can save you from a crash. Zach texted that evening, "Your things are packed. I'll be gone 6 to 8 if you want to pick them up." The specificity made something unclench in me. It was like he was saying, I won't be a wall you crash into. I'll be a schedule you can live inside of. I went over at 6:20. The boxes were labeled in his tidy handwriting: bathroom, desk, closet. He had put my plants in a laundry basket with towels tucked around them like babies. There was a note on top of the closet box. "I found your rabbit." He had drawn a tiny carrot next to it. I cried again, but it was a smaller cry, like my body was learning how to portion grief into doses. I left the spare key on the counter. I put my keys on a separate key ring. I sorted my life into mine, and not mine, like a responsible adult. Zach didn't come home while I was there. He didn't text me to ask if I'd seen the note. He let the boxes do the talking. A week later, I asked to meet. Not to fix it, because some vases don't glue back in a way you can drink from. I wanted to apologize with my mouth, not with platitudes in a text message I had edited 14 times. He said yes. We met at a park where we had once argued about whether the dog should be allowed on the bench. We sat on separate ends of a picnic table, like a negotiation. I wore my plainest sweater because I didn't want my clothes to be a statement. He wore a hat I'd bought him. He didn't take it off. I told him I was sorry for blaming him. I said the sentences my therapist had suggested I practice, which felt like training wheels for being an adult. I turned my pain into a weapon and pointed it at you. I made up causes to make chaos feel orderly. I took your car to control something when the inside of me was a centrifuge. I won't do that again. He nodded and looked at the ducks like he was auditioning for forgiveness, but knew the role was already cast. I appreciate you saying that, he said. I'm not coming back. He said it kindly, which made it bear more weight. I can't be with a person who thinks I'm a safe place until she's drowning and then decides I'm the water. I'm getting a second lock for the door, and I'm changing the policy on the car from ask then take to no. That's not punishment. That's how I keep my life safe. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't list my sins. He didn't remind me of the night I told his mother I hated her casserole, and then realized I was grieving and the casserole was fine. He just said he was done. It was the cleanest cut I've ever felt. I asked, because I hate leaving words unsaid, if we ever had a baby. He shook his head gently. Don't, he said. We don't live there anymore. I nodded and looked at the ducks, who were fully unbothered. We sat for a few minutes in a silence that wasn't hostile. Then he stood. Take care of yourself, he said. Take Moose to the groomer on the 15th if you have him that weekend. He added, I'm giving you the couch. I blinked. Why? It's easier to keep the house if I replace it with a futon and pretend I'm in a college dorm, he said. Also, you picked it. He walked away. He didn't look back. He didn't watch to see if I cried. He stopped offering me the comfort of his attention, and I felt the withdrawal like a drug. That's what losing the person who has always looked at you kindly feels like someone closed a window and the air changed pressure. For realism you will care about because the internet will. He's allowed to report his car stolen if I drive it without permission. Even if I have a key and I'm on the insurance, being listed as a driver doesn't mean I own it. The officers weren't being dramatic. They were protecting both of us from turning a bad day into paperwork. No, I couldn't temporarily transfer title without him. No, me paying half the insurance doesn't make it marital property. We weren't married. Yes, I could have gotten in more trouble if I'd driven off. Yes, a lot of miscarriages happen for reasons no one can control, and there is nothing medically sound about blaming a night shift or a walk around the block. If you're reading this with a fresh loss sitting hot in your chest, I'm sorry. Drink water. Take the ibuprofen. Let people carry your groceries. Don't pick a villain to make the world make sense. The biology doesn't care whether you assign a face to it. Greta made me a list. She stuck it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a pineapple, because she thinks hospitality applies to grief too. It said 1 shower, 2 eat something with protein, 3 walk outside, 4 don't text him, 5 therapy, 6 hydrate, 7 pay the electric bill, 8 put the spare key in an envelope labeled do not. I did numbers 1 through 3 the first day. The envelope took a week. Therapy took 3. The first session, I told the counselor everything as if confessing could carry the baby to full term in reverse. She listened and then said, "You tried to control a story that doesn't have a villain. You punished the person you trusted the most, because that's where the safety was. You can learn a different reflex." She gave me homework that sounded like it belonged in kindergarten. Notice when you're blaming, write down what you actually feel, replace the sentence, "This is your fault, with this hurts and I don't know where to put it." I started doing boring responsible things, because boring is how you build a floor. I called HR and told them I needed a few more days. My manager, who is the kind of woman who remembers everyone's kids' names, told me to take my sick time and not to check email. She didn't ask what happened, she didn't need me to turn my body into office content. I paid my copay and didn't argue with the pharmacy when they rolled their eyes about a refill. I cleaned the microwave. I took Moose for long walks on my weekends with him, and didn't imagine he could smell the difference on my hands. A month later, Zach and I met at a coffee shop with our friend Theo as a buffer to exchange a few remaining things. A drill, a houseplant that had been doing better under his care, a box of old ticket stubs I didn't know he had kept. Theo told jokes at the wrong time because that's how he loves people. Zach and I talked logistics like neighbors. He looked lighter, not because he wasn't sad, but because he had put down the part where he was trying to be my shield, and then my wall. He smiled at a barista. I watched his face settle into a new setting. I realized the win here wasn't that he got to keep the car. It was that he refused to stay where I could keep throwing my pain and calling it intimacy. I won something too, but it isn't the kind that lets you keep what you wanted. I learned that apologies are not levers. I learned that grief makes you invent laws that don't exist. I learned to write down facts when my head tries to write fiction. We lost a pregnancy. The doctor said it wasn't something we did. I blamed him. I tried to take his car. He protected himself. We ended. When I can't sleep, I repeat those sentences like beads. They aren't comforting, but they are real, and real has a way of slowly knitting your insides back together. Sometimes, alone in Greta's spare room with the ugly floral comforter we make fun of, I imagine a different version of the parking lot scene. In it, I say the right 3 words. In it, I let Zach hold my hand while I cry. In it, I don't go looking for keys like control is a virtue. Maybe that version of us survives. Maybe it doesn't. Either way, the lesson stands. You don't keep love by treating it like a lock you can pick when you feel powerless. You keep it by telling the truth when the truth is the only thing with a spine. Zach is seeing someone now. I found out because Theo is bad at poker face and because our city is small. She works at the bakery where he fixed the panel that night. I made a joke about poetic symmetry, and then sat in my car and cried because symmetry doesn't make loss prettier. I don't hate her. I don't hate him. I hate the version of me who thought a car key was a wand. I am learning to leave things where they belong. My grief with me, his keys with him, our story in the past where it can stop breaking the furniture in the present. I still keep the hoodie. It smells like laundry detergent in winter. When I wear it to walk the dog, I don't pretend it's a talisman. I treat it like what it is. Cotton sewn into the shape of a memory. Moose still pulls toward Zach's block when we're on that side of town. I redirect him, not because I am ashamed, but because I am choosing not to make a small dog my excuse to pass a house that isn't mine. On weekends, I bake banana bread for Greta, and try not to turn her kitchen into a metaphor. I make lists. I go to therapy. I keep a new envelope in the drawer labeled do instead of do not, and inside I put notes that say things like text Anna a meme, buy grapefruit, call mom back, water the plant. Small instructions that move life forward one Friday at a time. If you're wondering whether Zach and I talk now, we don't, not beyond logistics about Moose or a bill I forgot to switch to my name. He doesn't need my progress report, and I don't need his approval. The last time I saw him, we were both buying light bulbs at the hardware store. The blandest meet cute in the world, repurposed as a goodbye. We smiled like people who have lived through something you don't put on a t-shirt. He asked, "How are you?" And I said, "Better," and he said, "Good," and then he picked out a pack of LEDs while I pretended to read labels. He paid with a card that probably still has our old gym logo on it, because neither of us has canceled that membership. He waved and left. The automatic door swished shut like a period. He wins in this story not because he kept the car, though he did, or because he has a new person, though that helps. He wins because he refused to be my cushion for impact. He chose a boundary that looked like loneliness for a while, and then looked like peace. He let me face myself without offering to hold the mirror. That isn't cruel. It's kind to both of us. I lose the thing I thought would fix the hole in me. I gain the knowledge that the hole isn't for fixing by other people. It's for tending by me. The baby we wanted doesn't exist in this timeline. That sentence will always feel like a bruise. But I no longer need someone to point to when it aches. I keep the brochure the doctor gave me in my nightstand. On bad nights, I read the sentence again. There is nothing you did to cause this. I say it out loud and imagine sending it backward in time to the version of me in the parking lot. If she could hear me, maybe she'd lay down her weapons and let the silence be what it is. Not a confession, not a verdict. Just the sound of two people who wanted something and didn't get it, breathing in a car that belongs to one of them, on a street where the roses still need watering no matter what happened inside.